what advice would you give an aspiring investor who's 6 to 12 months behind you?
I say start with a mentor, take action, learn everything you can, but don't just spend all your time learning. Be able to go make yourself uncomfortable, take action. And as you take action, you're going to see what the next action is you need to take. It will become apparent as you move through it, but you're not going to know, you're not going to see the whole staircase, all at once. You got to get one thing at a time. Start with that. You're going to be calling brokers. You're going to be learning how to underwrite deals. You're going to be getting into this, and it will all start to make sense as you get into it.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Four Oaks Capital. Super excited for today's show. I've got a first deal episode coming up for you with Noel Walton. He and his team recently closed on a 172 unit in Waco, Texas, C-class value add property for $11.8 million. And we're going to talk all about that today. So Noel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Good to have you on. I think we first connected, almost 2 years ago, I think. But happy to see that you guys closed. And what's extra nice is I already know half of your team, so this was a fun one to watch, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, finally, it's great to get together with you here on the podcast. And then we've been in contact on LinkedIn for a while, and finally got to meet you in person at the Michael Blanc conference last month, actually. So that was great.
That was nice. Got to say, you're taller than you look on screen. You really are.
Yeah.
So
I always say everybody's the same height on Zoom, right?
Yeah, I know. I mean, you look about the same height as I do. You're looking at my screen and looking at your LinkedIn profile, but I got to say, I look up to you. I really do. So that said, tell us a little bit about yourself, and kind of lead us. Weave a tale of how you got into apartment investing.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm active duty Army. I've been in active side of the military for 16 and a half years now. Started my career in 1999 and as an enlisted Air Force member. Did 6 years there in security forces at Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland. And you had some fun times in presidential Air Force One security and all of that. Mm-hmm. Kind of led me to the path of going into law enforcement on the outside. And then I missed the military and said, hey, let's go to school full time and go to ROTC. Ended up going the Army route. So that took me to Army Aviation, and always wanted to be a pilot. So worked my butt off, got into aviation, been a Black Hawk pilot since 2011. And nice. It's been awesome. Loved it. It's been a good ride, but along the way, I really had an interest in real estate investing. I had initially got the initial idea through the late night TV commercials in the early 2000s with Carlton Sheets. And, I remember seeing him on there. Yeah. Way back. I
do. Carlton, he was he was in that I'm trying to remember, Will Smith show back in like late 80s, early 90s. And his name was Carlton in the show too. What's that called? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Let's see. Yeah, I'll have to look back at that.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Okay, there you Fresh go. Prince. Okay.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Yeah. So I remember those late night TV commercials because I was a big, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air fan when I was a teenager. But that dates me quite a bit. I think a lot of people can probably peg my age right now. And
well, he was he had the using other people's money for real estate, and he had his own course and all that. So he'd talk about how he'd have his commercials and be standing in his nice house and his nice cars, and order my cassette tape course. So being an E3, I was like, hey, I'll spend $150 and order that cassette tape course. So I did that and started educating myself early on. But the key piece that was missing for me was the mindset. And I didn't know really that I had the ability to do it. It made sense in my mind, but it was just taking the action that I never did. It was fear. It was limiting beliefs. That I just had to grow, and I didn't know how to get there at that point. So fast forward, years went by, things kind of went out of sight, out of mind. Then when I went to college, while I was in ROTC, a buddy of mine that we were both in RTC together. He and his dad were flipping houses, and the perfect time, 2008.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on in 2000. I was a college student, just focused on, trying to get into aviation, but they were looking for someone to help them out and, help them do manual labor. So I got in there, started helping for $8 to $10 an hour just to make a little extra money over the summer, and started to figure out more about what they were doing. And they had me inputting expenses, and I see the spreadsheet with income of $20,000 per month. And I'm like, wow, there's something to this for sure. These guys just work whatever hours they want. They buy these houses as foreclosures. They fix them up and rent them out, and they're making bank. So there's definitely something to this. And that kind of re-sparked things for me. And I think a lot of it was just that idea, that limiting belief that you have to have tons of money to get into real estate investing, which I know is not the case now. But yeah, I of course didn't know how to, I don't have money. I'm a college student.
Yeah.
So fast forward to after I commissioned and got to my first duty station for flight school, I got out there and found a small townhouse, bought the townhouse, overpaid, didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, hey, it's cheaper mortgage than rent, so why not?
Yeah.
And I bought that, got I did a little bit of house hack with a roommate, one of the rooms, and that started things off. And from there, I went to Hawaii, used a VA loan, found a short sale, and we got a little bit smarter each time. And we started getting into the podcast. This was the early days of the Bigger Pockets, and reading all the books we could get a hold of, the Robert Kiyosaki, you name it. That's where the mindset started to turn on at that point.
Yeah.
And
got a couple of those on my shelf right behind me. So absolutely. Yeah.
So that's where everything kind of kicked off, and we did well in the short sale. Of course, the appreciation in Hawaii is still insane. We sold that house, made a good profit, went back to Alabama, and that's where we said, hey, let's use this capital and really do something with it. So we took the plunge into some fix and flips. We rehabbed once, been renting out ever since, owned free and clear, borrowed against that, did several other flips, made some more profits off those. And, it was great. It was fun. We enjoyed it. And we had tenants in different properties and gained some experience there, but we realized this is very hands-on. It's not scalable. And now we're having our second daughter, and they're both young and require our attention and our time. What are we going to do from this point? We don't have that bandwidth at this point to do that hands-on work. And that's when I started to hear more about passive investing through multifamily and just investing in general, and hearing what the benefits are of multifamily. And that brought me to learning more about who's now my mentor, Rod Cleef, and jumping into his education program, which has been phenomenal. But really it's, just being able to take the action and take advantage of the education, because you can educate all day long, but if you're not taking the action, you're not going anywhere. The knowledge alone is not going to get you anywhere. So that was the key, is, really January of 2020. That's when I made that full decision and just went full bore. So
nice.
It has been paying off in dividends. The first things, built a team. We've been working it hard. Got our first deal done. We're in our really second syndication deal now. I'm also a co-GP on another. That'll be another third. It'll be my third syndication. So we're getting after it and having a blast doing it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it's fun to see. So something I'd like to ask everyone who comes on the podcast, and you talk about what you've done, and you may have brushed upon this a little bit, but I'd like to ask everybody what their big burning why is, what their motivation is for doing this. So what drives you to, pursue these big multifamily deals?
For me, it's having options is the big blanket. I guess that's the broad generic way of saying it. But if I want to get into specifics, it's having the options to where, how much time I get to spend with my family, where we get to travel together, when we want to travel, how we want to travel, that is huge for us. My wife is from Austria, so we have very close ties there with her family, and we want to have my post-retirement life in Europe, and we want and need to be able to travel back and forth between the US and Austria. So that's part of it. That's a drive, getting our kids in the best education that we can for them, providing them with the options in their life for their growth in education. And like I said, just building memories with them. That's a huge part of, being able to do that as much as possible when they're young, still, keeping that family bond together. And that's huge for us. Also is outside the family side of things is being able to give back to veterans. And there's such a huge problem with the homeless veteran population and the PTSD and suicide and all of these things that we know as service members that a lot of the things we experience in the service contribute to. But there's so many great nonprofits out there. There's so many great causes that we want to be able to give back to and do our part as a team as well to give back and assist veterans. So those are our biggest ones. And like I said, it's just being able to give back, and now having this knowledge and this experience that I'm gaining now, it's a lot of it for me that's so exciting is bringing value to other people that want to learn about the business. I've connected with so many people through whether it be LinkedIn or Clubhouse or Instagram, and we start talking and they're like, hey, how do I get started? Well, let's talk. I love I don't charge you. I just want to sit down and see where you're at. If it's something that is fits in your goals for your future. And if I can help you, I will give you every resource and bit of information that I can to help.
Yeah. That's huge. That's huge. And I too been on dozens and dozens of calls like that. I should have kept track of the number. I'm probably into the hundreds by now, but and that were the same. So I appreciate the causes. I mean, the veteran causes, a lot of homelessness, a lot of PTSD, a lot of issues there. And then just to reiterate, money gives you options, and that's one thing that I think a lot of people are realizing with maybe a single stream of income is their options are extremely limited, and being able to invest and grow your income and have those extra streams provides you with options, and that's what it's all about. So let's talk a little bit about building the team and where you found your partners and how that came about.
So it was interesting. I didn't build it as, I would say, as intentionally as someone might want to normally, but how we came together was really cool. That I just started learning the business. I knew, hey, I need to get out and network. Your network is your net worth, as you hear it all the time. So, all right, I'm out networking, I'm contacting people, I'm posting, and I post in the local Facebook active duty passive income group. And I know there's a lot of military on there. So like, hey, anybody in Killeen, Fort Hood area, love to connect if you're investing in multifamily. And my first partner, Miles Spetsios, responded and he said, hey, let's meet up for coffee. So we met for coffee, began talking, found out we had both just started learning about the business. We both had just invested as LPs in a couple different deals. And we both had the same visions, same goals that we wanted to achieve, that we wanted to be active investors. So we said, hey, let's before we fully commit to anything, let's just start running some numbers together, putting a couple LOIs out, and if we can do a deal together, see how we work together. If we like it, we'll keep doing more. So left it pretty open. And so we started doing that through 2020. It was a tough time. Deals were kind of hard to find, especially with COVID and all. But along the way, we connected with a couple other that are in my networking group. Was James May, who's a former Marine and Foreign Service, and Tom Groves, who is a retired Navy Master Chief, just served for 26 years. And these guys bring some great skills to our team. We bring them in, and it just so happens like we all bring skills that cover the breadth of what we need to be successful in each deal. And
Yeah.
I cover a lot of the relationship building. I love to get out and talk with brokers, with investors. I love to be on podcasts. I love talking about our team. I'm passionate about it. I'm excited. My partner, Miles, he is our underwriter. He is our cyber ops guy. So he started Air Force captain, is now in the Space Force.
Now.
Yeah, he just transitioned to Space Force. Smart guy. He's been learning this business so fast. Really is all about the numbers. And James and Tom really bring a great asset management skill set to our team. And capital raising and asset management, we're all doing capital raise right now. It's just the nature of the beast. We're all raising for deals. So that's what we got to do starting out. And but these guys are staying after, keeping on these property managers, keeping the business plan on point, on budget, all of that. So they're really doing some great stuff. So throughout this, it's been a great partnership, and we have really learned so much about ourselves, about each other, what our strengths are, and how to better refine our roles based off our strengths, which has been great.
So to recap, you found your partners in networking groups that were aligned with investing, and some of them multifamily specific, which I think is a recurring theme when I talk to people. It's just that the networking events are key to finding the partners, and you never know, like when you went to coffee with Miles, you had no idea what that would turn out with. And I'm sure you had coffee with a lot of other people where it didn't turn out, but you got to put yourself out there. You got to talk to people, and you got to, like you did with Miles, try to take things to the next level. And incidentally, I mentioned earlier that I know, a couple of your partners. Tom and I were stationed together at the consulate in Rio back in 2014, 2015 timeframe. So I know him and his wife, and Miles is in our Tribe of Titans, one of the first members to sign up for that. But so I know those guys, and I think you got a great team assembled. But
thank you.
Well, let's start talking, about the deal specifically. Tell us how you found it.
So this specific deal, I had established a relationship with a broker here in Texas, and he had sent us a few deals, and starting out, of course, I'm sure he was thinking, these are just a bunch of newbie tire kickers, and hey, he would send us the leftovers that nobody was buying, and we'd run the numbers on them. But I think he noticed that as we would get back to him, we would run the numbers and give him feedback like, hey, these guys know their numbers. They know what they're talking about. We made sure we were on point, giving him very solid feedback. And then I stayed in touch with him regularly, let him just keep that follow-up. And I think he really got to realize, hey, we're a solid team, and we've got some good backing, good sponsor that is partnered with us. And, he brought us a deal, this 172 unit in Waco. And we put our first offer in based off of our underwriting, came up with our number, submitted that, and found out a few days later that we didn't get the deal. So someone else had come in with a significant amount of hard money on day one, and we just we weren't quite ready to do that $200,000 of hard money up front. So we're like, okay, oh well, we lost it. Let's move on. Keep looking for more deals. So we kept doing our thing. Meanwhile, I continued the follow up with that broker. Found out a couple months later that seller was about to fall out of contract, could not raise his funds. So we actually had a second chance, and the broker said, hey, I really like you guys as a team. I think you would be great to work with. I want to get your strongest offer in front of this seller. And we worked our numbers, got it as strong as we could, got us in the door. We did a little more negotiation, and that got us under contract. So that's what got us there, got the ball rolling.
So the first time around, you mentioned you weren't ready to put hard money down. Second time around, was hard money part of your offer?
It was, yeah. And the seller was still wanting a couple $100,000 hard. We managed to negotiate that down to a $25K hard day one, and the remaining 1% of the purchase price, which was $118K total, that went hard after the due diligence period. So we were able to, get a little more favorable to our side of the deal, which is great. And but of course we had to be willing to pony up a little bit on the front end.
Yeah. And it is a competitive market. And in a competitive market like that, the sellers they got a little more leverage to demand that, so and sellers are they're obviously looking out for their own interests, and somebody who's willing to put 25, 50 or 100 grand down hard day one, they're more likely to close on it. I think is what what the sellers are looking for. But we've been able to negotiate some creative terms as well, to try to avoid that entire earnest money being hard day one. On the last one we closed, we negotiated a 15-day contingency period instead of like a 30, which a lot of people put in, where our money went hard at the 15-day mark. So that got us out of hard money. I think it was enough to show the seller that, hey, we're willing to whittle this down to 15 instead of 30. What do you think? And it worked for us. So.
Yeah, and that was part of ours as well. It was a very short due diligence period, but it drove us to ensure we were really getting out there every day and putting in the work to not wasting any time. And I think that helped show some confidence to the seller as well.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about the due diligence process, since you brought that up. Tell us about due diligence and how that went for you guys.
Okay. Yeah. So, first things, obviously, you're wanting to look at those major items that could be very expensive. Number one, sewage. Your sewer lines coming out of the buildings. You're going to get those scoped. Commercial plumber goes out, puts his camera through. Make sure that there's no broken lines, no clogged lines, looking for bellies where, the water has essentially carved out areas where things, whether it be objects or water could be sitting in the line. You're looking for those discrepancies there that could cost you in the future, whether it be backups or, the breakages and things like that. So that was one piece, just going through those. That's very time consuming when you have 19 buildings on a property. There's a lot of lines to go through. So it's about 3 to 4 days worth of camera line scoping there. We initially, one thing we found out, and this being new, and of course you want to get on top of things. I went out and paid for a phase 2 environmental to go out, and they did their thing, came back. We got our report negative and all that, which was great. But then we found out later that the lender wanted to have their own person out. So we were like, okay, so that's we were able to work out. The mortgage lender was able to front that second one for us, since they didn't tell us that beforehand, that they were going to have their own. So, but just a little point that could save someone a couple $1,000s on the front end. We work through that.
Something we do to try to save the money is in our paperwork, we will ask sellers for any existing environmentals, so and at the rate properties are trading hands nowadays, a lot of sellers have an environmental 2 years old, so we'll at least have a warm and fuzzy looking at that 2-year-old environmental to say, okay, I think we're good. Obviously knowing that the lender is going to do its own environmental later on. But anyway, quick tip, we didn't know that the first time around, but we'll save you money from here on out.
That's good stuff. And it's and especially once that environmental is going to look back on the history of the property to see in previous decades, was it a laundromat or something on that same plat of land, and then okay, that part's covered. So that's good.
And if you've got a 2, 3, 4-year-old environmental study and it's just been apartments for 2, 3, or 4 years, you can be fairly certain that you're going to get a clean bill of health when that comes out. So,
that's good stuff.
Any other lessons learned from the due diligence period that you want to talk about?
So really for us, we went through all the major items. Found a few items of concessions that it's a little bit different in the commercial side, and just this one piece of information is that you don't normally make concessions on small things like you would with a residential property when you're going to buy. You might nickel and dime on a residential all day long, but on a commercial property, you really don't want to try to bring up concessions or things on with a seller unless it's really significant items that really can be expensive. So if you get those type of items, we actually worked a lot of that communication through our broker. I would say the better option and to cover yourself is the right answer is always go through your attorney when it comes to those sort of things. That can really be sure that it keeps things open and documented between both of the seller and the buyer's counsel.
All right, good advice there. All right, so let's we talked about getting under contract, due diligence. The other beast is funding. It's two parts of funding. You got a loan and you got capital raise. Walk us through how you funded this $11.8 million deal.
Yeah, so first off, we got approved for Fannie Mae backed financing. And it was a 30-year amortization, 65% loan to cost, and a 5-year interest only, which that really helps out a lot with the cash flow the first few years, only having to pay the interest on that debt. So that was for us great terms. The interest rate being in about the mid threes roughly. We were really happy with the terms there. And, obviously we knew it was going to be a good performing property, but this 5 years of IO would really help us out in the first few years as we carried out our business plan as well to ensure that we could continue to cash flow for our investors.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So 65% LTV means you have 35% to cover. Tell me how you guys cover that 35%. So roughly, math in public, $4.5 million. Right there.
Yeah, about $4.5 million. We, initially, so we started our organically raising, and this was a 506B syndication. So it had to be from substantial relationships that we had with people currently. So it was a challenge, it was a big raise. But what we did, hey, let's figure out what we can do to help close the gap on the equity. So we were able to get a private equity firm into the deal as well. They brought $1.5 million into that, and that really brought down our requirement considerably, helping us reach the closing table, which was great. It does come at a higher interest rate, a little bit higher terms. However, it did work out in our underwriting, and we're able to underwrite them technically as a second position debt. They are, in reality, they're not debt just because of the way that the legal structuring of the deal has to be for Fannie Mae to accept them into the deal. So a lot of intricate details as far as that goes, but yeah, they were able to cover that. It brings our blended interest rate up slightly higher, but they're only in the deal for 2.5 to 3 years. Then we'll be able to pay them out, and the rest of that cash flow is then better spread out to our investors, which is great. So we got that. Then of course there was the raise itself. Beyond that, we're looking at close to $3 million that we were able to raise organically. And it was a lot of work. It's just all about getting out there, talking to people, setting the webinar presentations, getting people on that webinar, and really presenting it well, and being able to answer people's questions, and setting up follow-up calls. So it really stayed busy. You had to be able to get on several calls a week. And over time, our goal is to get to the point where a lot of this is more automated, takes less of our own time as we build that list. We know that there's going to be more serious investors ready to go without having to essentially
dial for dollars.
Dial for dollars and hit those initial, the Facebook messages and the LinkedIn messages and all of that. So, starting out, that's really, you just have to hit it hard, hit the streets hard. So that's what we did. And
I got a Facebook message from Tom on this one. So I remember that one. But so it's and something to be said about automating the capital raising process. I think everybody's first deal is going to be very similar to what you just talked about, where it's very intensive. It's very much getting on the phone and dialing for dollars, following up with everybody who showed interest. But if you follow the philosophy, like you said, where all of you guys are always raising, you're always raising capital and you're always finding the next person who's interested in investing, pretty soon it does get easier. And it comes to the point to where you can send an email or two out, or a string of emails, have a webinar, and then watch the money pour in. But
yeah, exactly.
That's where we're trying. We've gotten to that point. Our last raise was $3 million, and that's how we raised the $3 million. I think if we were try to jump up to a $5 or $10 million raise, we'd be dying for dollars right now too. But we'd get there.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what's great. It's like the first time around, it's stressful, but we know, hey, if we have to get to that 2 to 3 million, we know we can hit that. And we're the plan is to grow that and continue to grow that investor list and make sure that once they are in, that they are loyal, that they want to come back for more investments, that they trust us at that point, and they're excited for our next deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So you closed in March. How have things gone since March? I know you mentioned it's Tom that does most of the asset management. So I mean, just wave tops if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For us, the big part of this, obviously, it's a value add. So our rents taking over this was very mismanaged and very low rents. They were not enforcing late fees on rents, things like that. So there was a lot of upside there. And we've put in a very good institutional level property management company that has put on-site management. This other company did not have on-site, which was very surprising for that size.
170 units, no on-site. Yeah, okay, got it.
I couldn't understand that. But they kept their rents low, and that's how they stayed occupied. So we went in there, and first things for us was to take the old leasing office, which was right by the pool, and move that to what at one time used to be a leasing office, turn that back into a leasing office, but first renovate it to the specs of what our new renovated units are going to be. So what that does is, people come in to check the place out. Yep. It's that first impression. They say, hey, they see exactly what they can envision, what their living space is going to look like when they rent one of those renovated units. And that was our first step. Get their new furniture, everything moved in there. And they're operating out of that now. And we're working hard on the renovations. We were able to get a significant amount of units vacated early on. A lot of it was evictions for non-payment. You will see a lot of that with mismanaged properties. They just kind of let things slide. And although they were very occupied, their economic vacancy was much higher. So
you're fortunate to be in a location that would still, with the eviction moratorium. As of the data recording, that Supreme Court struck that down 2 days ago. Yes. But you're fortunate to live in a jurisdiction where they were still evicting people. And I know there's a lot of places that weren't. But something to be said about purchasing properties in the landlord-friendly states as opposed to the tenant-friendly states. You were able to do that. So
absolutely, and a lot of it, like you said, a lot of it is state interpretation, or how they go about it, but none of these residents had the proper documentation that is required to show I have a hardship due to COVID. They just weren't paying. And so, it was easy enough to get them out. We took a big hit to the occupancy level, but that is an opportunity. So we took that to turn those units, getting those remodels in, and we have already got half of those filled and pre-leased, and all of them are pre-leased at this point. So there's a demand there. People are wanting those nicer units, and the area is growing. That's what we love about it. It's been one of those under the radar markets. A secondary. It's an hour and a half or so south of Dallas, but it's right along I-35. Great market. There's a lot of jobs coming to that area. So it is a growing market, and we expect to see some good things there over the next 10 years. But yeah, that's generally what we've been doing is the interior. Next, we'll be hitting the exterior renovations. That been working on a couple items on the exterior before we can get started. But that's going to be a full exterior paint job. We're going to get new signage, rebranding, and give it a whole new look, which is great. So yeah, a whole new reputation.
Yeah. Yeah. Make it a brand new property. Changing the name too, rebranding.
Yes, changing the name. Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. You might have mentioned that. I might have missed it. So I apologize, but
No worries.
yeah. So, and so a couple questions just to finish up here. First one is, what's next for you?
Well, yeah, we are currently under contract on more deals, and so continuing to grow the portfolio, provide more opportunities. Nice. We're still looking in the Texas, primarily Central Texas area. We like these markets a lot. There's serious growth happening in Texas, so we're jumping on the secondary and even some of the tertiary markets. I mean, those are going to be next. When you see the cap rate compression that's been happening, it's getting so competitive. You go to Dallas Fort Worth and you're looking at sub 4 cap rates on properties, and it's just insane. So now the only place people can go when the population gets so saturated is out. They're going to go to these secondary surrounding markets. Waco being one. We're going to see other areas that are just anchor markets or anchored to those primary markets, and we expect to see some growth there. You can get them, a lot of these properties, much cheaper per door, and there's a lot more opportunity there. So as those areas grow and the demand grows, obviously then cap rates will tend to go down, and obviously the rents are going to go up as long as inflation goes up. So
absolutely. Yeah, and that's something, we got hundreds and hundreds of years of history that says real estate prices are going to keep going up. I mean, there might be some cycles where there's a temporary down, but they will continue to go up. If the future is anything like the past. So one of my favorite questions for the first deal episodes, what advice would you give an aspiring investor who's 6 to 12 months behind you?
So for this aspiring investor, what I always tell them when I'm speaking is, first, find a mentor, find someone who's been in the business, and just obviously somebody that is experienced is going to be busy, but find ways to bring them value. And whether it be through learning to underwrite a deal and say, hey, I've got this deal, it looks great, can you take a look at it? Could I possibly partner with you? Can I do something to help you out? That's one great way to get in with a mentor. And whether it be that or the route I took, buying into a coaching program, there's great ones out there, several of them. Look into those. Obviously they're not cheap, but if you're taking the action, they will be worth it. The resources are there. So, and the network is in those as well. That's what I love, is you have the network, you have the education, you have the mentorship and the coaching. That's all in one deal, one package, and all those resources are available. So I say, start with a mentor, take action, learn everything you can, but don't just spend all your time learning. Be able to go make yourself uncomfortable, take action. And as you take action, you're going to see what the next action is you need to take. It will become apparent as you move through it, but you're not going to know, you're not going to see the whole staircase, all at once. You got to get one thing at a time. And that's what I say. Start with that. And you'll start seeing what comes next. You're going to be calling brokers. You're going to be learning how to underwrite deals. You're going to be getting into this, and it will all start to make sense as you get into it. So that's honestly what I say. It's just, you just got to get the basic education going, and then as you learn each step, take action on it.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice. I mean, I did something similar. It wasn't Radcliffe, but I paid for a coaching program, and looking back at it, there was nothing magical about that specific program, but the network that came along with that, and the experienced operators who were able to give us advice really was a big help to us, and still is a big help to us. But yeah, I second everything you said on that one. All right, last question: how can listeners learn more about you?
So, really, you can reach out to me on my email if you'd like that. That is Noel, Noel, at jcore, JCORE investments.com. You can reach out to us through we have a JCore Facebook page. We have our website, jcoreinvestments.com. So those are all great ways to reach out. Plus we have an Instagram as well. So, you can reach out to us on any of those platforms. We are actually in the process soon. We will be launching September 9th, Thursday, every other Thursday night, a multifamily Zoom meeting. And so we're excited for that. So it'll be every 2 weeks, completely free. And we will be starting that at 6 p.m. Central on Thursday, every other Thursday. So we will plan to have a different guest speaker each time to talk about different topics on multifamily real estate. Very, very experienced, and everything from the GP operator side to the limited partners to insurance, you name it. So want to bring as much value as we can through that and give people a great opportunity to network. And we'll be excited to get people on board there and meet more folks.
Yeah. All right. We'll put links to the social media, the website, and your email address in the show notes. So anybody who's interested, please reach out to Noel. He's got a lot of good stuff going on for you. That said, thanks for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it, and hope to see you again soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Brian.